Imagine yourself at a crossroads, and there's really not a whole lot there. It's just like footpaths. Imagine yourself at a crossroads. You've probably been to this crossroads before, or you're just now coming to it, but either way, there's a decision or a choice to be made, or choices to be made at that crossroads. Much like this guy named Eli. Eli stood at this same crossroads, and he had to make a decision which way he wanted to go. There was no signs, direction signs. There was no people. They were just, he didn't have a map. He was just out and about, enjoying life, doing his thing, comes up. So he decides to take a left. So he takes a left, and that left leads him to a beautiful forest. You know, I'm talking about a forest that's got those big trees, and you can see forever under it. If you deer hunting, know what I'm talking about, or if you like to walk in the woods, you can just see forever. It's clean. There's no underbrush. It's just beautiful. And he's walking and he's enjoying it. Now, he begins to trek on through the forest, but there begin to be more roots and trouble that come out into his pathway. And the further he goes, the more roots begin to grow. And the further he goes, the more rocks that kind of stick up. It's not as nice as a path as he used to have. And so he turns around and he goes back. And he goes back to that same crossroads to make another decision, to make another choice. And so this time, he looks right. And it looks like this one opens up into a field like prairie type land. So he turns right and he begins to go down that road. And it's beautiful, like fields, but it's weird. Because he begins to walk and it's uphill. And so he begins to keep walking, and it's easy walking, but later, he keeps walking, and his quads begin to start, his legs begin to get sore. His calves get sore, and his feet begin to hurt. And he finally reaches the top of this hill that seems to be never ending because it's long and it gets steeper, it seems like at the end, but it's easy walking, but it's tough on his legs. So he tops the hill, and what does he see? Yet another hill and another hill. He said, I can't do this. So he turned around and comes back down, and he's standing at that crossroads, and he only got one other way. It's growed up. It don't look like many people go that way, but it's growed up, and he said, I've tried this way, I've done this, I've made these decisions, it didn't pan out. He said, I'm going to go down this way. And so he sets out. He goes down it, he makes his decision. He says, now this one, I'm not going to turn around. This one, whatever brings, whatever happens, I'm just going to keep moving through it. And lo and behold, he takes that path, and he doesn't realize that the heartaches he's going to encounter. And that path does bring him many heartaches. That path brings him a lot of heartaches, but it also brings him joy and happiness at times. Because that path, if you can imagine hiking yourself, the hill that it takes to get to the top where the view is tough. Amen? But when you get up there and you look, you may say, that's worth it. But it would bring him joy. It brought him hurt and pain. And if I could say that this world does a lot of that. And if I can say that there's not many of us who have started this year too well. There's a lot in this church themselves have started this year off with a bad note. But it doesn't always get easier, and it's not always going to be easy. So we go back to Daniel because I believe Daniel had a life of joy and a life of heartache, a life of pain. So that's what I'm going to try to prove to you today is that, and I'm going to try to prove to you Daniel's choice that he made. So let's read. If you've got Daniel chapter 6, let's go through verses 1 and 3. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because you know this story, I know this story. But verse 1 of chapter 6 said, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, that the satraps might give account to them, so that the king would suffer no loss. Verse 3, then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So just real quick, we'll do a little bit of teaching. Darius is not just the name of the person. Darius actually was a name of 3 Medo-Persian kings. They just all went under the name Darius. Now this guy's name I can't pronounce, but I'll spell it for you so you can try to pronounce it yourself. It's Cyaxares. That is his name. That is who is believed to be the king at this point. Even though we call him Darius, he is just under that name. There were 3 Medo-Persian kings, his father and his grandfather before, under this name. Now the satraps, I'm sure you've been taught this before, were just government officials. They were placed throughout the kingdom, right, over different provinces or whatever, different parts to make sure things go right. These 120 satraps are set in place, but they are to what? They are to communicate or to speak to or are under 3 governors. Now one of those governors is Daniel, right? So Daniel is one of those 3 governors, and if you went and if we read verse 3 again, verse 3 said that the king had even thought about placing him over all, probably second in command to the kingdom itself. If he is going to place him over the whole realm, the king, right? So tell me, let me ask you this. Do you not think Daniel is fairly happy in his position? Now we know who Daniel is, we know where Daniel comes from, we know what Daniel's going to do. But just think for a moment in this time, do you think Daniel at this time is fairly happy with his life? I would say yeah. I would say yeah. He's got a position of authority. He's got a position of authority. He's not really answering to hardly anybody. He's up there. He's high on the totem pole. Hallelujah. Does that not bring you joy? If I go to work and I'm the highest man on the totem pole and I ain't got to answer to nobody, I'm a little bit happier. You know? Just think about it. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind for a moment. All right? So he's possibly going to be lifted even higher above all those here. Now let me point out, the satraps, those who are going to be placed in government positions, they would have only come from the highest of the families. Okay? So keep that, think about that. The highest of the families. What do you call that? The aristocrats. That's where he would have come from. That's where the families would have come from who are satraps, who have been placed into government officials. There's a choice Daniel made way back that leads him here. Now you may disagree with me by the end of this, but there's a choice Daniel made that leads him to this place. His choice to be an obedient, faithful, trusting man is what gets him here. Or woman is what gets him to this position. His choice that he made. Now verse 4 through 7 tells us what? Let's read it. So these governors and satraps thronged before the king. They were in disorderly gathering before the king. They just rushed in on him, right? We know that from the last time we spoke. Before the king and said thus to him, King Darius, live forever. They give him all the glory. All the governors of the kingdom and administrators and satraps, the counselors and advisors have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, King Darius signed the written decree. You remember how we talked about the aristocrats and the families and those who would think they would be in a position? And I think about that. Remember that. Why do these people hate Daniel? Because this ain't just dislike, this ain't just jealousy. But jealousy can lead us to this position. But they don't like Daniel. They hate Daniel. Right? They wish to see him die if possible. Right? But what would you think about why they hate him? Why do they hate him? It's not only because he was being promoted over him, right? Have you ever had any hard feelings to people being promoted over you and you say, there's no way they should be there? That's just human nature. It's not only that, though, I believe. It's not only just because they're being promoted, but Daniel was not one of them. Remember? Daniel was not of them. Daniel was not a Mede. He was not a Persian. He was not one of them. He was different. Why? What was he? He was a Jew. He's been there for he's 82 years old now. 82 years old, but yet he's still not part of them. He's still not part of them. They don't see him as part of them. He was taken when he was around 15 years old, and he's lived here for his whole life in exile. But yet, he's really still not part of it. Because his decision that he made a long, long time ago brings him here. Not only brings him to the position of elevated, but brings him to the position of being hated. I hope I'm confusing you just enough so you pay attention, follow. Because I'm confused myself. But listen, he's being brought. His decision he made to be an obedient, faithful, trusting man or woman, he's a man, but woman, man of God, has brought him to be elevated, and it's brought him to being hated. Hated so much to the point they wish to kill him. Daniel's choice ultimately does what? Daniel's choice ultimately leads him to another choice. It leads him to a choice where he had to make a decision to change the choice he had already made from a long time ago that could cost him his life, to remain obedient and faithful and trustful, or to turn his back on God. I want you to notice something before we move forward. Well, let's just go ahead. Verse 10 through 15. His choice is going to cost him. So now when Daniel knew what the written writing was signed, he went home. And in this upper room with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. Then these men assembled, found Daniel praying and make supplication for his God, and they went before the king and spoke concerning the king's decree. And have you not signed, they asked the king, a decree that every man who petitions any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered, said, yes, and said, the thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. So they answered and said before the king that Daniel, who is one of the captives from Judah, does not show due regard for you, O king, or for the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. So then, and the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men approached the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and Persians that no decree or statute which the king establishes may be changed. Daniel's decision that he made a long time ago brings him here. I want you to notice something that I've noticed. Daniel's decision that he made a long time ago brought him to just as many bad places as it did good places. Daniel's decision to be obedient and faithful and trusting brought him to just as many bad places as it did good. And so the king, with a heavy heart, has to do what? Has to throw him into the lion's den. Now let me ask you, there's not many kings in this world that's going to care enough about you and be sorrowful if they had to do something about you and your faith. Verse 16 and 17 says this. So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. Then a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring, and with the signets of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. The decision that Daniel made long ago, I believe, has brought him to the lion's den. Daniel's decision that remained, that didn't change, has brought him to the lion's den. The God that the king says, the God that you serve, Daniel, is going to deliver you. But yet the God that he served is what has him where he's at. You getting it? The decision Daniel made has him here. Because the God he serves has him at the lion's den. I don't know about you, but that seems to be a sealed fate. If you didn't know the rest of the story, you'd probably put good money on the Lions, wouldn't you? Not in the NFL, but I'd have put good money on Green Bay last night. Anyway, if you was a betting man, you wouldn't put money on Daniel if you didn't know the rest of the story, because the Lions normally win, and Lions normally overcome. This is lions plural. It ain't just one. The way I read it. Sure seems like a battle that's already been decided. It seems like the fate of Daniel has been sealed, and it seems like his decision to be a godly, faithful, trusting man of God has led to the lion's den. if I was Daniel, and I had done lived all my life like this, up and downs, and I was living in exile, and then yet I'm still serving you, God, and you sending me because of the choice I made to serve you, to be obedient to you, to be faithful to you, to be trusting in everything that you said, and here I am going to the lion's den. I think I would have questions. I think I would wonder why. And you say, well, how do you think Daniel was obedient from the beginning? Because they were told by Jeremiah, listen, you're going to go into captivity. Just go into captivity and you'll come out and you'll be better. Daniel went in and he took it, he embraced it. Yeah, he lived there, he wasn't part of them, but he embraced it. And what his decisions to be an obedient, faithful, trusting person is what brought him to the positions. But he was always that to God. He wasn't that to Nebuchadnezzar. He wasn't that to any of those. He was always that to God. But all those, that decision, that choice he made so many years ago, I believe, is why he is where he is. I can't explain why God would take him to the lion's den. I can't explain why things happen in our lives. I can't explain why this world is going to go to a position of hatred for you and I, that they would seek to see you dead versus to even be free. But your choice just might lead you there. Your choice will probably actually lead you there. Psalms 34:7 says, the angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. So I give you a couple bottom line points real quick. Just real quick. The choice, I hope you've already made it, but the choice that you make to be obedient and faithful and trusting in God is not easy. It is very difficult at times to hold your faith and to believe and continue to walk when times get tough. And the world ain't going to get no easier for you. It ain't going to get no easier for me. There's going to become a time when you're afraid, possibly, to speak what Daniel spoke openly. But I believe there's one thing Daniel made sure that everybody got. Everybody, the king, everybody there got this. That no matter what, whether through his life or through his death, God would be glorified because he would never turn. He would always be obedient and faithful, and he would always trust in God. No matter what comes, no matter what takes place, no matter how tough it is, no matter what the world tells you, no matter what they threaten you with, no matter just, there is joyful times and there is hard times. And it's all because of the choice you make. But the choice you make is worth it. The question is, Daniel's greatest choice was made inside himself before he ever made it public. What will your choice be when it's forced to go public? Will you remain obedient and faithful and trust in God